A world champion in just his third season in Formula One, Nelson Piquet's place in the pantheon of motorsport legends was evident at an early age. His 2 subsequent crowns merely confirmed his greatness. Often overshadowed by his fellow 3-time world champions Jack Brabham, Jackie Stewart, Niki Lauda and compatriot Ayrton Senna, his craft and cunning made him as many fans as it did detractors. But he loved to drive, and he lived to win. On his day, there was no one quite like him, and his career was filled with moments of true brilliance. In 1982, Piquet was the reigning world champion, but the Brazilian had yet to win his home race, an omission he hoped to rectify as the teams arrived in an extremely hot Rio de Janeiro for round 2 of the championship. Qualifying P7, he would need to extract everything from his normally aspirated Brabham to challenge the dominant turbos of Ferrari and Renault. Working his way up to 3rd spot, a superbly executed slipstream pass on René Arnoux saw him edge closer to race leader Gilles Villeneuve.
There he goes, through into 2nd position, then goes Nelson Piquet. Now he has just got Gilles Villeneuve ahead of him. Rosberg is right with Piquet and he's challenging for 2nd place.
The 2 Cosworth-powered cars traded places as they hunted down the more powerful but heavier Ferrari out in front, and a 3-car battle ensued. Harrying Villeneuve at every turn, the decisive moment came on lap 30.
Piquet now is going to try and go round the outside, and Villeneuve's off. Villeneuve's off. He's lost it. He put his wheels on the grass. He's off. Piquet leads with Rosberg 2nd.
Rosberg, having wrecked his tyres in the earlier tussle for P2, would settle for 2nd place. Piquet's only challenge thereafter was the intense heat and the resulting fatigue, as evidenced when he took to the podium to receive the winner's trophy.
Piquet up on the rostrum is looking very, very dodgy indeed. He's fainting. Rosberg and Prost hold him up. And this is sensational. The race winner has fainted and he's disappearing behind the rostrum.
His subdued champagne celebration was perhaps an omen, as both he and Rosberg were subsequently disqualified, their cars being found underweight due to the nature of their so-called brake cooling systems. He and his Brazilian fans would have to wait a little longer for a home Grand Prix win. The last of Piquet's 23 victories in Formula One came at the 1991 Canadian Grand Prix. One of 4 Brazilians in the race, including his Benetton teammate Roberto Moreno, he started from the 4th row of the grid. When another compatriot, McLaren's Ayrton Senna, suffered a technical issue and slowed, Piquet managed to muscle through past Senna and the 2 Ferraris of Jean Alesi and Alain Prost. He was up into 3rd, with both Williams Renaults ahead, Nigel Mansell leading Riccardo Patrese. A puncture for Patrese gifted Piquet's 2nd spot.
And it's a puncture, right rear puncture, look. Riccardo Patrese is going to lose his 2nd position. That means to say that Nelson Piquet will go up into 2nd place.
But the Brazilian was still over 50 seconds behind Mansell, the Briton having led every lap and coasting home to what seemed a facile victory. Not so. Coming through the final hairpin, Mansell's engine died.
Nigel Mansell, just a few hundred yards from the flag on the last lap. He's stopping, he's banging his steering wheel in frustration. Something has happened. It looks as though he's out of the race.
Piquet sped past to take the final checkered flag of his illustrious career.
Then I got the news from the radio that Mansell is slowing down, and when I saw him, I couldn't believe it. It was very, very good, very lucky.
You must feel a bit sorry for Nigel.
Well, I don't feel sorry for nobody. This thing happened with me already. I think race motor racing. I think a winner will finish in the checkered flag first.
Made notorious as the race in which rivals Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost had the 2nd of their championship-deciding collisions at Suzuka, the 1990 Japanese Grand Prix was remarkable for another, less controversial reason. It marked Benetton's first 1-2 finish, and it was Piquet on the top step. Running P3 after Prost and Senna's incident, it wasn't long before he was into second when Gerhard Berger's McLaren found itself beached on lap 2.
And that is Gerhard Berger off. Well, what an amazing Japanese Grand Prix.
Suzuka suited the Benettons' less powerful Cosworth V8s, their lower downforce reducing wear on the tyres. Both were fueled to the end of the race and did not plan to stop. Mansell's Ferrari couldn't do that, so the Briton needed to use his extra speed to build up a cushion before pitting for fresh rubber. But what is that phrase about best laid plans go awry? Mansell's stop was quick, but on release a half shaft sheared and his 641 ground to a halt, cutting Ferrari's awful day mercifully short.
Problems for Nigel Mansell, and well, that really says it all. Poor Mansell.
Piquet brought it home for his first win since 1987, ahead of teammate and compatriot Roberto Moreno, a glorious 1-2 for Benetton. And with Senna also crowned Drivers' Champion, it was a day for Brazilian fans to remember.
I'm very happy because it's more than 3 years that I win a race, and also more than that, I'm very happy because enjoying me, my old countrymate Roberto, that started motor race together with me, and I could enjoy the team and finish second behind me and make me and the team very happy.
In 1986, the then two-time world champion surprised the motorsport world by switching from Brabham to Williams, alongside Britain's Nigel Mansell. Williams had the class car of the season, the FW11, with its Honda V6 turbo, one of the most powerful engines the sport had ever seen. Installed as favourite for the 1986 title, the opening round was held in Rio. But it was another Brazilian, Ayrton Senna, who put his Lotus on pole ahead of Piquet and Mansell.
Is it going to be a problem having Nelson on the front row beside you, in that we have 2 Brazilians who are obviously going to want to lead their home Grand Prix on the first lap?
No, I don't think so. Nelson is twice world champion, and he knows that this is not the most important thing in the race. The most important thing is to finish, and to finish first.
The two Williams were soon won when the Briton came off the worst after a tussle with the aggressive Senna. Piquet gave chase, and on lap 2, he made his move.
And through into the lead goes Nelson Piquet. Nelson Piquet leads on lap 3. A Brazilian has displaced a Brazilian.
There was little Senna could do but hope for an error or a technical problem for the Williams driver. Neither were forthcoming. Piquet drove the perfect race to win his second Brazilian Grand Prix, taking victory on his maiden drive for the team.
For so many reasons, it was good to win here. First win at home, the first race of the championship, and then a new team. And after everything happened with Frank, we are very happy to give this present to him.
The San Marino Grand Prix first graced the Formula One calendar in 1981, but the most serene republic lacked a racing circuit, so Imola was chosen to host. Piquet qualified P5, but the wet conditions and a poor start saw him drop to 9th place on the opening lap. At that point, there seemed little hope of chasing down the new turbocharged Ferrari 126 CKs that were building up a serious gap at the front, Gilles Villeneuve and Didier Pironi. But patiently and skillfully, the Brazilian cut through the pack, lapping fastest of anyone on track. As the circuit dried, race leader Gilles Villeneuve pitted for slicks, and Piquet found himself in third, and soon all over the back of Riccardo Patrese. Once past the Arrows man, there was another to deal with, race leader Pironi.
He's going to try and go through, and indeed he does. We have a new race leader, and it's Piquet ahead of Didier Pironi.
It was an intelligent and skillful move, the type that would come to epitomise his racing style, and one that would net him victory at Imola, his second win at the famous Italian circuit. In 1985, Piquet secured what would be the Brabham team's final win of their illustrious history. Starting P5 on the grid, an excellent start saw him vault into third spot.
I had a very, very good start. After the fast corner, I was in a third position. You see, it's coming Keke leading, Senna and me.
Ayrton Senna's Lotus was no match for the BMW-powered Brabham.
Well, I was already trying very hard to get Senna. He tried to overtake me back, but it was too late. And after that, I tried to push a little bit more to get close to Keke.
The Finn had no answer as Piquet made a daring lunge up the inside at the senior curve.
It was a very dangerous place to try, but it was the only place I could. Keke tried to overtake me back, but it was too late.
And as they left the Beausset Horseshoe Bend, the Brazilian was leading the race and went unchallenged to the flag.
Now, you and Pirelli have worked together to get the product right, and it really looks as though you have.
Yeah, I'm very happy about this because we had so many bad races, and now we won the first one.
Well done.
Thank you, and hello for all the mums in England.
Hot off the back of his magnificent win in Suzuka, Piquet arrived in Adelaide for the final race of the 1990 season on a high. What followed was a masterclass in the art of overtaking. P7 on the grid as the race began, he made short work of Riccardo Patrese Williams, and a few corners later, it was Jean Alesi in the Tyrrell that found himself staring at the Brazilian's gearbox. On the third lap, he made a move on the Ferrari of Alain Prost, and on lap 9, a move up the inside of Gerhard Berger saw him leapfrog the Austrian into P3. A mistake by Nigel Mansell saw Piquet close in on the Ferrari, and as they exited the Mistral hairpin, he made a superb pass on the inside to take second place through the chicane. Ahead of him was Ayrton Senna, but the world champion-elect missed a gear and crashed out, giving the race lead to Piquet.
This is incredible! Ayrton Senna is straight off the circuit, over the flag and into the tyres.
As the laps ticked away, Mansell, on a charge after a pit stop for fresh tyres, began to close in on his former Williams teammate, who in turn was being held up by backmarkers. On lap 80, the Brazilian ran a little wide, allowing the Briton to close in, setting up a last-gasp Mansell lunge at the hairpin as they lapped Stefano Modena. Thankfully, both drivers survived, and Piquet secured the win ahead of Mansell and Prost.
Nelson Piquet wins his 22nd Grand Prix as Glenn Dix waves the checkered flag, and look at the overjoyed Benetton mechanics.
When motorsport fans mention endurance, they're generally talking about Le Mans or the Indy 500. But what Nelson Piquet had to go through during the 1984 Canadian Grand Prix was more akin to a certain 80s Japanese game show. The defending world champion secured another Grand Chelem in Montreal with a superb pole, leading the pack around for the entire race, bagging the fastest lap on the 55th time around, and topping it off by beating the McLarens of Niki Lauda and Alain Prost to the line. A remarkable feat in itself, but when you consider that his Brabham's new nose-mounted cooling system was emitting intense heat, which was burning a hole in his boot every time he pressed the accelerator, the very fact he finished the race at all is a mark of the man's commitment and brilliance.
Now, Nelson, everyone saw a modified nose cone that allowed for a heater up front for the oil. Is this what gave you the foot problems? You have a burned foot here.
Yes, was too much heat and under the seat.
So what are you going to do with Dallas? Will you change the radiator back, do you believe?
I don't know.
Piquet had to endure another feat of endurance to claim his maiden world championship in 1981, in the final race of the season. 3 men were still in the running for the driver's crown as the teams arrived in Las Vegas for the Caesars Palace Grand Prix: Piquet, Carlos Reutemann, and Jacques Lafitte. The location for the showdown would prove problematic. Racing around the famous casino's parking lot, the circuit's zigzag and anti-clockwise layout put huge strain on the drivers' necks over the 75 laps, and the desert heat only made things worse. Piquet's weekend was made worse after he employed the services of Sugar Ray Leonard's masseuse to ease his Las Vegas neck, suffering severe bruising to his back. The 75-lap race proved a brutal slog. Piquet later admitted that when the board went up to signal 33 laps completed, his head sank, the agony of continuing almost too much to bear. But continue he did for all 75 of the grueling, exhausting, monotonous and strength-sapping laps to come home in 5th spot ahead of his championship rivals and claim that coveted title. Physically sick and at the point of collapse, he eventually managed to take to the podium to celebrate his triumph. It wasn't just his perseverance and stamina that made Piquet one of the greats. It was also his battling style, best exemplified at the 1986 Hungarian Grand Prix. Attacking race leader Ayrton Senna, the two Brazilians fought out a duel on the Hungaroring that lasted almost the entire race. On lap 11, Piquet saw an opening on the long straight down to turn 1 and slipped inside, outbraking Senna to take the lead. Ayrton managed to leapfrog Nelson in the pit stop shuffle, and the compatriots soon left all pursuers for dust. Piquet tried a repeat of his earlier turn 1 triumph, but a resulting lockup let Senna back through. There was a sense of déjà vu as 2 laps later he tried again, this time switching to the left, and with a bit of block and a whole lot of drift, he made it around the outside.
Nelson's got round the outside of it. Oh! Big side from Nelson and nearly contact. Tremendous stuff. Real wheel-to-wheel stuff.
Many Formula One drivers are better remembered than Nelson Piquet, but few match the Brazilian maestro's skill, dedication and prowess. And even fewer have 3 world titles to show for it. He was, and remains, one of the greats.